The sinister truth behind a vanishing hitchhiker. She chose who lived and who died. It begins on an empty highway, late at night, when headlights cut through the dark like fragile beams of hope. Drivers tell the girl waiting by the roadside, dressed in pale clothing, her hand raised for a ride. Many stop, moved by instinct or pity. She sits quietly in the back seat, giving only a name or an address. But when the car reaches its destination, the seat is empty. She has vanished. For decades, Americans have passed down this story as a chilling urban legend, the vanishing hitchhiker. But what if the tale you think you know hides something far more sinister? What if she isn't a lost soul searching for home, but a judge traveling in silence, deciding who walks away from the road, and who never sees another dawn? This legend may be older than cars themselves, stretching back through centuries of death omens and spectral warnings. Before we uncover the hidden meaning and the darker origins of this legend, make sure to subscribe, leave a like, and share your thoughts in the comments. More revelations like this are coming, and you won't want to miss them. Now, let's step into the shadows of America's highways, where her story first begins. On lonely highways, when the night stretches endlessly and headlights carve fragile tunnels of light through the darkness, drivers tell of an encounter that chills the blood. A young woman stands by the roadside, her figure pale, her dress often described as white or light-colored, fluttering in the night breeze. She raises her hand, asking for a ride. Her face is delicate, sometimes sorrowful, sometimes eerily calm. Most drivers, moved by sympathy or curiosity, stop and let her in. She slides quietly into back seat, speaking little, sometimes giving an address that seems close, sometimes only whispering the name of a town. As the miles pass, the strangeness begins to sink in. The hitchhiker sits silently, her presence heavy, her gaze fixed on the passing night outside. When the driver finally approaches the destination she mentioned, there's a sudden realization. The seat is empty. She has vanished without a sound, leaving no trace of entry or exit. Shocked and shaken, the driver may even knock on the door of the address given, only to be told the girl died years ago in a tragic accident. The story repeats across decades, across states, and across generations of drivers. This version of the tale has endured because it feels universal, a perfect ghost story for the open road. It preys on familiar fears, being alone at night, the unpredictability of strangers, and the thin veil between life and death. Some tell it as a cautionary tale, others swear it happened to a friend of a friend, and a few claim it happened to them directly. Each retelling keeps the details slightly different. Sometimes she wears a prom dress, sometimes a wedding gown, sometimes she carries nothing at all but her silence. The mystery is what keeps it alive. Yet beneath the familiar comfort of this urban legend lies something unsettling. Why does she appear only to certain drivers? Why does she ask for a ride, only to disappear before reaching her destination? If she were simply a spirit replaying her final night, her appearances would follow a predictable pattern. But the testimonies don't line up neatly. In some cases, accidents followed soon after the encounter. In others, only those who showed her kindness made it home alive. The legend begins to stretch beyond a harmless ghost story into something more dangerous. That's where the story turns. The vanishing hitchhiker isn't just a girl who died tragically and lingers on the road. Some whispers claim she chooses, that her silent gaze isn't emptiness, but judgment. She decides who leaves a highway unharmed and who won't see another dawn. And suddenly, the question becomes terrifyingly personal. If you saw her tonight, would she climb into your car or simply watch you pass, knowing your fate was already sealed? The vanishing hitchhiker may sound like a modern invention, but the roots of this legend stretch deep into the American psyche. The earliest printed versions appeared in the 1930s and 1940s, when highways were expanding and cars became central to everyday life. Newspapers told strange account of drivers encountering a mysterious passenger who disappeared without explanation. Folklorists began collecting the stories, noting that they spread rapidly across the country, from Illinois to Texas to California. Each region added its own details, yet the pattern remained: a ghostly young woman seeking a ride home, vanishing before arrival. This timing is not accidental. America in the early 20th century was haunted by new dangers on the road. Car accidents skyrocketed as driving became widespread, and countless young lives ended abruptly in crashes. Communities, especially small towns, often turned these tragedies into cautionary stories. A girl who died on her way to prom might forever haunt the road where she was last seen. A bride killed in a collision might eternally seek the church she never reached. In this way, grief and fear crystallized into folklore. The ghost on the highway wasn't just a story. It was a mirror reflecting America's unease with its newfound mobility. But here lies a disturbing twist. Versions of the phantom hitchhiker existed long before cars. In European folklore, tales describe travelers encountering mysterious companions who vanish before reaching their destination, often linked to omens of death. The Irish spoke of banshees appearing at crossroads, while parts of Mexico told of spectral women stopping travelers on horseback. America didn't invent the ghostly passenger. It modernized it. The story adapted seamlessly to cars, highways, and the anxieties of a nation always on the move. This deeper history hints at something older, more primal, than just a modern scare. Folklorists also noticed a peculiar pattern. Many of the strongest accounts came not from casual storytellers, but from police officers, priests, and respected community figures. Reports of vanished passengers often ended with tragedy on the same stretch of road days later. Were these coincidences, or was a legend being used as a tool to explain the unexplainable? Some researchers suggest communities leaned on these stories to make sense of sudden deaths, while others argue the repetition hints at a darker truth, that the figure was not a passive spirit, but an active force tied to fate itself, which raises a chilling question. If the vanishing hitchhiker's roots stretch across cultures and centuries, could she be more than just America's creation? Could she be an eternal figure who adapts to each age, each mode of travel, always haunting the threshold between journey and death? And if that's true, then every retelling, every reported sighting, isn't just folklore. It's another piece of evidence in a long history of encounters with something far older than the automobile. When we peel away the familiar version of the vanishing hitchhiker, the quiet girl who simply disappears, we find something darker hiding underneath. Early oral accounts collected in the Midwest in the 1920s describe not just a vanishing passenger, but a deadly omen. In these stories, the driver who refused to stop often suffered a fatal accident within days. Those who dared to mock or mistreat her fared even worse. Their cars were later found twisted beyond recognition, as if something otherworldly had ensured their punishment. The hitchhiker was not merely a lost soul. She was an executioner cloaked in silence. Some tales recorded in the Appalachian region take an even more sinister turn. In these versions, the ghostly girl would accept the ride, but once inside, she would suddenly grip the driver's hand or lock eyes with him through the rear-view mirror. What followed was terrifying. An icy chill filled the car, headlights flickered, and in the morning the driver's lifeless body was found in a ditch, the car undamaged. To the community, it was a judgment. To folklorists, it was a story too consistent to ignore. Her disappearance wasn't always quiet. It was sometimes a final embrace. In Mexican-American border towns, variants of the tale described her as La Desaparecida, a spirit who didn't vanish until after she had whispered a warning. "Your time is close," some said she murmured. Drivers who heard the words were said to die within a week. Others survived but carried scars of accidents that nearly claimed them. These darker adaptations suggest the hitchhiker wasn't always a victim searching for closure. Sometimes she was a harbinger of the inevitable, her ride nothing more than a passage to death itself. Police archives from Illinois and New Jersey even record bizarre notes from the 1940s. Reports of accidents where survivors claimed to have picked up a pale girl in white moments before their crash. In some cases, the hitchhiker vanished seconds before impact, leaving survivors convinced they had been marked. Officials often dismiss these claims as trauma-induced hallucinations, but the consistency across cases raises disturbing questions. If hallucinations, why always the same girl? Why always the same silence? And this is where the story shatters its own boundary. The vanishing hitchhiker is not just a ghost who vanishes, but a force tied to death itself, choosing when and how it strikes. She doesn't just haunt the roadside, she judges. which means every retelling of her story may carry more than entertainment. It may be a record of her verdicts, whispered through generations. And if her original form was not a victim, but an arbiter of death, then the real fear isn't seeing her vanish. It's wondering if, when she looks at you, she has already decided your end. The Vanishing Hitchhiker is more than a campfire tale. It is a symbol deeply woven into the American subconscious. Highways represent freedom, opportunity, and the thrill of escape, but they also embody danger and sudden loss. The silent passenger embodies this contradiction. She is the fragile reminder that death can ride with anyone at any moment, unannounced and unstoppable. Her vanishing is not random. It reflects the fragility of life itself. Here 1 second, gone the next, leaving only questions in her wake. Psychologists interpret her as a projection of guilt and responsibility. To some, she is the embodiment of drunk drivers' remorse, a silent figure who forces them to confront the lives lost on the road. To others, she represents the anxiety of picking up strangers, a fear magnified in an era where trust is scarce. Her silence becomes more haunting than screams, because it mirrors the silence of judgment, the unspoken truth that no excuse, no plea, will change the verdict. Her absence says more than words ever could. That fate doesn't need to explain itself. Cultural scholars see her as the trial every traveler must face. The road is not just asphalt. It is a passage where choices determine survival. Offering her a ride becomes symbolic of how one treats strangers, how one faces fear, and how one values compassion even when uncertain. For those who show kindness, survival becomes possible. For those who dismiss or mock her, destruction follows. The hitchhiker is not just a ghost. She is a moral test disguised as a fleeting encounter. But the most unsettling symbol lies in her silence. Silence in folklore often marks transition, thresholds between worlds. Her silence is not emptiness. It is a sound of judgment unspoken. In that quiet moment, as the driver glances in the mirror and meets her gaze, there is no negotiation, no bargaining. The verdict has already been passed. Her disappearance is simply the execution of that decision. It is not escape, it is closure. The quiet carries the weight of inevitability. And this transforms the legend into something far more intimate. The Vanishing Hitchhiker is not a random ghost story, but a mirror reflecting the deepest human fears: guilt, mortality, and the uncertainty of what awaits us after death. She is not only on the road, but inside the driver's conscience, which leaves us with the most haunting question yet. If her silence is a verdict, then what would she decide if she rode with you tonight? The Vanishing Hitchhiker endures because she embodies the most universal truths: that death travels beside us, silent and unseen, waiting at the edges of our lives. To some, she is a tragic victim replaying her final moments, forever trapped in a cycle of grief. To others, she is a sinister judge, measuring the souls of those who cross her path. Either way, she forces us to confront the vulnerability of life on the open road and the unpredictability of fate itself. Her story is not about a single ghost, but about the fragile line between safety and catastrophe. Every retelling carries a warning that one small decision, a stop, a glance, a word spoken in kindness, may determine survival. Whether she is a figment of folklore or something more real, she reflects a hidden truth of human existence that we never fully know when our final journey has begun. The legend thrives because it feels less like fiction and more like memory, as though someone, somewhere, truly lived it. When we strip away the variations and embellishments, what remains is the sense of trial. She is the embodiment of choices, silence, and consequence. Her presence on America's highways reminds us that every mile traveled is a gamble, every moment behind the wheel a test. Perhaps she appears not to punish, but to remind drivers of mortality, to make them face what they fear to admit, that no one drives forever. Her ride is simply the truth delivered in human form. And so the Vanishing Hitchhiker lingers, not just on asphalt, but in the imagination of all who hear her story. She is a reminder that freedom is never free, that every path carries a price. The roads are not empty. They are haunted by echoes of those who never made a home. And if she appears again tonight, it will not matter whether you believe or not. What will matter is her decision, her silence, her choice. Because some say she already knows who lives and who dies. If you found this story chilling, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and share your thoughts in the comments. More revelations like this are on the way. Secrets hidden in plain sight. Stories you thought you knew but never truly understood. And if you want to support this work further, consider becoming a member. Together, we'll keep uncovering the legends that refuse to stay buried. The next one may change the way you look at history forever.